Hello, gorgeous humans. Welcome to the morning show. I am your host, Marli Ansel, at Marli Ansel on the Instagrams. And this is the morning show where you come to get your daily dose of inspiration and level up into your highest being. It's all about real life, but we make it magical. There's so much to talk about. Let's dive in. Good morning. Happy Thursday, amazing humans. How are we feeling? So, there's a lot to talk about today, per the usual. We're going to be diving into how becoming a stepmama completely leveled up and changed my life. And, y'all, I cut my kid's hair last night. If you ever in a million years would have told me this would be my life. But before we dive into it, let's talk about those cosmos because there is some big energy happening. So, right now, we have Mars and Venus are conjunct and they're moving together. Here is something that I found out just yesterday. Yes, just last night. And it's really interesting because it tied to something that I received the night before. So, not last night, but the night before. So, I journal in bed pretty much every night. And I went to go and write the date at the top of my journal, which, by the way, those of you who know me really well, you know I'm a writer. I'm a channeler. I have just journals and journals and journals and journals of writings. It is an entirely different vault of information than what I speak. A lot of it is similar, but there's so much in this, what feels like an arsenal of information. And I counted all the journals that I have. I have 95 filled out journals. Is that not insane? 95 filled out journals. And I just love it. Anyway, I keep dates on them because it helps to organize everything. So the night before last, I wrote in my journal, and at the top of the page, I wrote the date. And I wrote down 22222. It is not 2022, y'all. It's 2024. But I wrote it. And there was this split second where I thought, like, no, that's the date today. And I was going to show Robert, like, look how it does the mirror image thing. And then I was like, wait a second. No, it's not. It's not. It's not even the 22nd. Today is the 22nd. This was 2 days ago. It's not even the 22nd. And so I wrote this down and it surprised me. And so I just made a note of that. Okay. And then last night, I was listening to one of my favorite astrologers, and she was talking about how this Mars and Venus conjunction has not happened since March of 2022. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So, right here and now, good morning, Amber. Right here and now, we are in the Mars and Venus conjunction moving together, which essentially signifies a new cycle. Like there is no shortage of new beginnings when it comes to the cosmos. But right now, there are more new cycles beginning than we've seen in a really long time. So, you have Mars and Venus moving together in a new cycle. And she said that the last time this happened was in March of 2022. So, right now marks not only a new beginning, but an ending of something that began in March of 2022. And I thought, well, isn't that just the most interesting thing in the world that I accidentally wrote the end of February of 2022 in my journal, even though it's 2024. And that just happens to be the last time that Mars and Venus were conjunct. So, because I keep the dates on my journal, I went and found that's over here. I went and found the journal from that time period to see what was going on with myself. And of course, naturally, I opened the journal right up to the 22222, like literally just flipped it open and there it was. And in it, I haven't fully delved into it. So I will report back with what the whole vibe was and what the cycle was. But the page that I opened up to was this really beautiful vibration. That's the best way that I can explain it because whenever I write this is true for anybody. When you put something down on paper, or when you take a picture, or when you record something, the energy signature that you were in is infused into it. You guys know this. You can look back on old pictures of yourself and you can feel the energy that you were in at that time. You know what I mean? So it's the same for me with my journal. I can feel the energy that I was in at the time that I wrote that down. And on this page of 22222, there's a really beautiful energy, which was to be totally honest, kind of surprising to me because 2022 was a tough year. It was a tough year. It's not that it was like bad. It was just it was a lot. There was a lot going on. And on this one page, it was this energy of relax. Relax. Follow your joy, follow what feels good, share with the people, and just put it out there. It'll work. Everything's beautiful. And I just find that to be very interesting that all these little synchronistic winks from the universe are showing up, guiding you almost like for me it's like saying to you, I know you think that it might seem random, but it's not. This was all planned. You see what I'm saying? And there is a bit of a comfort to divine planning. Amen. It's like, oh, this was all part of the plan. This was all part of the plan. Huh. So think back. What were you doing end of February, beginning of March 2022? Because whatever you initiated at that time, that cycle is now coming to a close and a new one is beginning. I would love to know, those of you who are watching, what did you kick off? What did you begin? If you can think about it right away, what do you remember that you started around the end of February, beginning of March in 2022? What was that cycle? It's now coming to a close and a new cycle is beginning. Fun. So, we're talking today about how I cut my kid's hair last night. Let's see. Erica said, my single life, but putting me first. Let's go. What a good vibe. What a good vibe. So, last night, I cut my kid's hair. Y'all, if you ever in a bajillion years would have told me, Marley, your life will involve cutting your children's gorgeous hair and you're going to be a stepmama. Never in a million years would I have thought. But naturally, I nailed it. I did a great job. So, one of my superpowers, this is so funny, but one of my superpowers is precision. I can nail precision. It's that Virgo energy in me. I can see it down to the detail, down to the like nanoest millimeter if something is out of place, off center, or uneven. It's just a superpower I have. Like when we hang things, Robert centers it, and I tell him if it's centered or not. I know like we all do this, but he then marks it and he goes and measures it. It is right dead center in the middle. It's a gift. What can I say? It's a feeling. So I was pretty confident I could cut their hair. Now, the reason that I cut their hair, one, both of them haven't had haircuts in like a year. Violet's hair was literally touching the top of her butt. It was so long. And Willa has like a lion's mane of hair. Like it's insane the amount of hair this girl has, but it's gorgeous. And she came home day before yesterday and was like, I want to cut my hair. Now, these kids are fleeting in their wants and their desires, but you know that feeling. As a female, you know that feeling. When you need to cut your hair, you need to cut your hair like immediately. You know what I mean? And so I entertained it because I know that feeling. Plus, I have a really, really good friend, one of my best friends in the entire world, who's a hairstylist. And I was like, you know, these girls got long hair. There's nothing crazy or intricate. It's not like we're putting layers in here. And I can call Ashley, and Ashley can tell me exactly what to do. So I felt pretty confident about it. So last night, I was like, Willa, You wanna cut your hair?" She's like, "Yes." So I had her do the things. I FaceTimed my friend Ashley. I was like such a pro, tying it up, cutting it across, taking layers down, cutting it across, and it turned out great. I nailed it. I was like, "Chalk it up, put it on my resume like a boss." So I felt really, really good about it. And Willow was the only one that I was planning on doing. But then, of course, naturally, Violet, her little sister, was like, "Me too. I want to do it too." So I did their hair. I will take pictures for you guys and I'm going to post them on my Instagram today, later today. But what really kind of stood out to me in this is how much I do now that never in a million years would I have thought I would be doing. Never in a million years would I have thought that I would even have the capability to do it. And this really brought up the subject for me of like how becoming a stepmama has leveled me up so much. It's entirely changed my whole existence. And while we only have maybe 20 minutes here today, I want to give you guys a little bit of a Cliff's Notes of my journey from being single, independent, all I need to worry about is me, Marley, to becoming a stepmom and really the spiritual evolution that was behind that, and anybody who has kids knows how much having kids changes you. But I don't think we talk about it enough in the sense of like your own personal internal transformation. So when I first met Robert, and I knew he had kids from the get-go, but I didn't even think about it, which is a really funny thing. It didn't even it wasn't even a thought. Didn't even occur to me like, "Oh, he has kids. Am I ready for kids? I don't know." Wasn't even a thought. It was like, "Yeah, you got kids, great. Let's go." Like, no big deal. And our relationship moved and blossomed very quickly because from day one, it was just this electromagnetic, like, this is my person. It wasn't even those words. It was just this feeling of knowing. And so within the year, we had moved in together and I became a stepmom like that. Now, I had never had kids before. Hey, never had kids before. But what's so funny is having raising the kids and being who I am in their life was not the hard part for me. That never really occurred to me as like, this is difficult. What really took me through an internal transformation was that massive shift in my identity because I went from just being me, all I need to worry about is me, to now there are other people in my life who not only are depending on me, but want me there. Do you know what I mean? They want my presence. They want my opinion. They want my input. They want my energy. And that was one of the biggest healings that I ever went through because I was so accustomed to just doing my own thing. I didn't really think that it mattered if I was present or not. And this is an interesting thing to really think about. Like, I was downplaying my influence in people's lives. And I never really thought about it until I was living with people who wanted me present all the time. So when we first moved in together, as much as I can remember, because now when I think back on it, it was this time period of complete like it was a huge transformation of my life, going from like living by myself or not by myself, I had roommates, to now living with the man of my life and becoming a stepmom. Literally sold pretty much everything that I owned. And then Robert and I bought all new things when we moved in together. So it was like this complete upheaval of my entire life and stepping into a new role that I had never been in before, never even thought about it before. So, all of that to say, there was a huge transition from one level to the next. And in that interim, I didn't know how to handle it. I knew this is what's so funny. I knew how to be a good parent because of my job. And I know that that sounds so interesting, but mind you, I'm a stepmom, which is an entirely different emotional attachment than when you birth children. So I knew how to create space and make these kids feel seen, heard, understood, and help them to develop into, you know, functional, good humans. It was like I had those instincts naturally because of what I do all day with coaching and helping women heal and move through their mindsets, belief systems. And I have to hold that space for them all the time. So when I was hanging out with the girls in the very beginning, being with them was not something that felt hard for me. It was that transition of my internal world. Does this make sense? So, for a long time, a few years really, I went through this big transformation of self and I resisted it at the same time. And I think this is something that isn't talked about enough, but we're going to talk about it right here, right now. When you transition, especially into parenting, into becoming a parent, there is a time period of mourning, of loss, of grief. And I don't think it's talked about enough because we have a society that says, you should only feel joyful. And it's like, yeah, like becoming a parent is very joyful, but there is also a loss of your past self. There is an evolution. We think about it in the terms of transmutation, transformation. The caterpillar coming into a butterfly is never going to be a caterpillar again. Right. And so when you come into having kids, there is also this simultaneous letting go of who you were before kids. And I found myself, I wasn't consciously aware of it during the transition. I just felt a lot. I didn't know what was happening, but I felt a lot. And it's so funny because both of our moms, both mine and Robert's moms, would talk to me about what a huge transition this was. And I was like, no, whatever, it's no big deal. And then my whole being is like, like, what's happening to me? I didn't understand it at the time. Now looking back, I fully understand it. But I was resisting going into that next level. I was resisting going into motherhood, becoming a stepmom. And it wasn't conscious at the time, but now looking back, I can see it so clearly. I was fearful of letting go of that independent, fierce Marley. I'm a boss. I do this stuff. I got this. I travel the world life. I was seeing it as I had to let go of that version of me and then go into becoming a stepmom, go into motherhood, go into being a wife, domestication, all of these things. And so I had it separated. And that wasn't surprising to me that I had it separated because there was a time before I met Robert, a couple years, about a year and a half before I met Robert, where I very much saw that I could have this was my perspective. I could have a career and be super successful and travel the world, or I could get married and have kids. I didn't have them connected. I had them as two totally separate paths. And I don't think that this is a rare mindset. I think a lot of people think this way. And so in coming into being with Robert and having the girls now, it challenged that mindset. It really forced me to look at it. And in that time period, until I was able to really get clear and see it, what I was unconsciously doing was resisting going into this level of life. I was trying to hold on to the old level of life because I thought that it meant if I let it go, I thought it meant that I couldn't have the success. I couldn't have the career. I couldn't travel the world. And so I was resisting going into this new level, holding on to this old level, even though my entire life had completely transformed, I was living a different existence, but internally I was resisting. Does this make sense? So I had to really go through it, to be honest. I really went through it. There was a lot of shedding, as we call it in my world, letting go of old belief systems, shedding out energetic blocks. And there was a lot of core foundational belief systems that had to be rewired for me. And that's not to say that I'm not still doing it. There are things that are still coming even today as I feel like I've pretty much mastered it, but we always have another level. And so once I let it go. Oh, and this is where it gets good. Erica said, I definitely feel that and I struggle with stepping into both. I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people do. And even more so, I think we don't talk about it enough because you're supposed, like, as women, we're kind of taught you're supposed to want this. You're supposed to want to get married and have kids. And there's this old conditioning that is very antiquated that says, like, you're one or the other. You can't have both. And even probably even more dominant now. Well, it's changing. But I was going to say probably even more dominant is the idea that women are not supposed to be successful business women, that our role is more in the domestication. And I've always kind of rejected domestication. Which that's a whole other story. My husband's probably laughing right now. I'm the one who sets the oven on fire. Like that's my role here. But all the same, once I did this work of really when I was able to see that I was separating these two paths and I started to do the work of integrating them. And again, it's so funny because I was actively living it. Like, and this is how strong and powerful our minds are. I was actively living both, actively running the business, actively traveling, actively showing up every day, running my coaching business, very successful, and married. And well, we weren't married when we moved in together, but and being a stepmom, actively doing both. Yet in my mind, I was like, I can't do both. I can't do both. I can't do both. So you can imagine the kind of tumultuousness you could set up for your life if your life is literally playing out one thing and your mind is going, I can't have this. It's not possible. So there was a lot of tumultuousness that was happening for me internally. But when I finally, I want to say leveled up. I don't know that that's the right word, but when I finally leveled up, which essentially was I let go of the maiden version of me. So for those of you who are not familiar, there are three stages in a woman's life: the maiden, the mother, the crone. And it doesn't really matter if you choose to have kids or not, you still go through these phases. I actively let go of the maiden version of myself and stepped into the mother version. Here's what happened. And it shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. I leveled up in my sense of self, my power, my sovereignty so much. It was completely shocking to me because when you're on one side of something and you're resisting the new level, you resist the new level because you think you're going to lose something. And what I found in that transition of fully embracing my role as a stepmom, as this new level, was I leveled up. I mean, like my sense of self and power and understanding of who I am, like went. Now, who's to say all of the steps that or like what created that? Because the truth of it is that I did a whole lot of work, a whole lot of rewiring my belief systems, a whole lot of letting go of some old ways. I did a whole lot of that inner work that we teach inside the things that I offer you guys. But there was a moment when I really realized it. And you know what's so funny is your children, your children are some of your biggest teachers. Like our youngest is a very powerful little individual. Like it's shocking how powerful this child is. And I had to really level up in my own sense of self and power just to be that space for her. Do you know what I mean? Because if you are wavering in your power and you have a child who is over exuding her power, you have to be able to hold space for her power, for her level. So just her existence asked me to level up in my power. And once I started really owning that role, everything started just flowing. Everything got smoother. And there's a part of this to say too, coming in as a stepmom and never having parented before. I have like nephews, but that's not the same. you know. Um there was a time period where I was really finding my way, like second guessing, what is my role? What do I do here? And so there was a while where I had to kind of feel it out because you don't want to overstep, especially when I first came into their lives. I'm just really, Robert and I were still getting to know each other, and I'm just getting to know their mom and developing that relationship. And so there was a time period where it was like, what is my role here? And over time, in developing the relationship with the girls and really stepping into this next level of who I'm being, I found this beautiful sweet spot of who I am in this. And of course, that's always growing and expanding and changing and evolving, especially as the girls get older too. But as I embraced it and let go of that maiden era with love, like with love, I let that go. It was this natural, beautiful evolution in who I was being. And it showed up in more ways than just parenting. It shows up in my relationship, my ownership of my power and who I am, shows up in my business and how I show up here with you guys, my ownership of power and who I am. It shows up everywhere. And it was just a really beautiful and incredibly interesting. One of the things I always say is the lucky ones pay attention. When you can really pay attention and observe yourself, observe your life and your own evolution and the effects from your evolution, you can really see how much is affected when you choose to do this work. When you choose to level up in who you're being, it affects everything. I mean, absolutely everything. And then you start to see the beautiful divine plan, the synchronicities, and how there are things that will be a catalyst for you to level up that you would have never even expected. And it will affect everything. It's like your children are going to they're going to be your catalyst to level up in your power, to expand your capacity for emotionality. That's a whole other talk that we can get into later. But they're gonna trigger you, they're gonna teach you how to use your communication better because you have to teach them how to communicate. So your children can cause all these things that are your catalyst. Well, then guess what? Is leveling up in your power gonna affect your business? Gonna affect your relationship? Gonna affect your money? Yeah. Is your ability to communicate going to affect your business? Gonna affect your relationship? Gonna affect your money? Yeah. It's just absolutely fascinating to me when we're conscious of it. And that's probably the thing that I preach the most. When you can come into a whole new level of self-awareness, be conscious of what is happening internally for you on a day-to-day basis, that is your superpower. Because the more conscious you can be, the more aware you can be, the more you can step outside of your own emotionality, your triggers, and see things for what they are, the more that you're going to be able to control is the word I want to say, but it's not really the right word. The more you're going to be able to have power over yourself, control over yourself, and be able to see how all of these puzzle pieces kind of go together. So that transition has been huge for sure. But I can say confidently, being on the other side of that transition is one of the best things that ever happened to me. I mean, obviously, like I love my man, I love my kids. Like, yes, they're one of the best things that ever happened to me. But specifically, I'm speaking to the work that I did to go through this evolution, to decidedly step into a new era, a new level. And it wasn't without fear. And I hope you guys know that. I hope you know that every time that you choose to step into a new era of life, you're gonna have fear. You're gonna have things that you're fearful of letting go. That's usually what it is. It's like I'm afraid to let go. But what I have learned over time is that the thing that you think you're letting go of is rarely what it is. Like, you might think, "Oh, I have to let go of me," in my story of the maiden to the mother. I have to let go of who I am. And it's like, not really though. Not really. What you're truly letting go of is the idea that you had to be one certain way for your life to unfold how you thought it was supposed to unfold. The truth of the matter is that the universe, God, divinity, has a plan that your mind could never put together. And what you're really letting go is your idea of how things were supposed to go. And when you do that, you make room for the full truth of what it is that you're meant to step into. And it will be far better than anything that you could have ever planned or put together. So we have a phrase in our house, and I have no tattoos, but I think if I got a tattoo, this is what it would be. We have a phrase in our house where we say, "I let go of my way to make way for God's way." And essentially, just what it means is you let go of your shoulds, your expectations, your thoughts of how things they have to be, so that you can make room for a better way. More energy, more love, more abundance, more of that higher vibrational, beautiful energy to come in. Because when we're attached, when we say it has to be like this, that's ego. That's not soul. That's not higher level vibrational energy. That's fear. I need it to be like this because if it's not like this, then I'm afraid of blah blah blah. It's fear. It's ego. That's not truth. And it's not that it's easy, but it is the way. And so in letting go of what you think was supposed to happen, you make way for something so much better. Like everything that your little tiny ego self wants and more, and in a better way than you could have ever imagined. So we'll keep talking about this. I think it's a really big subject. We'll keep talking about parenting. We'll keep talking about raising conscious humans. There's a lot that I have to say and that I think would be very very helpful around raising your kids to be emotionally aware beings who know how to communicate what's going on with them. That's one of the things that is a number one priority in our household, communicating and feeling. Those are like the top two pillars that we talk about with the kids all the time. Because literally, I mean, legitimately, 99.9% of all of your problems could be solved through effective communication. It's just the truth. And if you can learn to effectively communicate, you could teach your kids to effectively communicate at a very young age. They will be absolutely unstoppable. I mean, if we could all learn this, you know what I mean? But we'll keep talking about it. I would love to know if you guys have any questions around any of this, around the transition of maiden to mother, around consciously parenting your kids, around having it all. We're going to keep talking about it because one of the things that has been very prevalent for me lately is allowing life to be really good, like allowing all of it to be really good. And how I think as humans, we have a discomfort with that. You know what I mean? We have the like, well, it can be this good. Other shoes got to drop sometime. What comes up must come down. Like we have that programming in us. And I don't think it's truth. I think we do get to have it all if we can have the capacity to allow it. And that's a whole thing in itself. But I can definitely see where I have had sabotage behavior in the past of life getting really, really good and then me being very uncomfortable with it. It's like there has to be something wrong, right? There has to be something that goes wrong. And now being where I am, I can look back and I can see a lot of that. So we'll keep talking about it. And I would love if you guys have any questions. We're going to start getting a little more themed, I think, a little more specific with the morning show. Maybe we'll have certain days that we do certain topics. So what I would like to start doing is a Friday Q&A. So tomorrow's Friday. So what I would love is that if you all have a question or something you want to dive into, be it personal or a broad, vague topic, whatever it is, I would love for you guys to send in your questions to assistant@marlyansel.com, and we'll start doing a question every Friday. I think that that sounds really fun. So if you have anything that you would like to send into the show, this topic or any other topic, send in your question to assistant@marlyansel.com, and we'll start doing Friday Q&A. Right? All right, my loves. I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And I will see you tomorrow for another episode of The Morning Show. Love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Hit like, subscribe, all of the things for me. It helps us to grow the show. And share it with someone that you think it would impact today. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, my loves.